So from sales to founder, what's the biggest transition headaches that you've come across?
In sales, you're always promising the customer the world. Engineers, you're always building like atom by atom. My CTO is very, very intelligent and can figure out how to build the atoms. And I can kind of like talk to the future, and it's about those 2 points together and finding like what are the step-by-step steps for us to get there.
So does your product have any like a marketplace features?
Yeah, I don't think construction this is what they tried to do in the 90s, was like have this like hey, everyone's like very, very like visible on pricing. And specifically mechanical electrical gear, it's like not that simple.
I'm just interested to how you came to that pricing conclusion.
From the industry, so every large general contractor in the States offer two insurance policies, CSIP and SDI. So instead of bonding a subcontractor, they'll do SDI. And then if the subcontractor runs out of money, they'll and those are both profit centers for general contractors.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Bricks and Bytes podcast. If you're a founder, construction tech enthusiast, or responsible for innovation in your company looking for exclusive insights and content not found anywhere else, you won't want to miss our newsletter. Head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today to get cutting-edge material delivered straight to your inbox. Last week, Chris Spicy gave us an inside view into the events leading up to Modulus's collapse and how it burnt £10 million funding in just 15 months. And now, time for the episode. From swinging steel on job sites to building a revolutionary procurement network, our guest today has seen it all in the world of construction. Mike Powers, founder of BuildVision, joins us in this episode to discuss how he's tackling procurement and supply chain issues for mechanical and electrical components. Get ready for a deep dive into the future of construction tech, the challenges of fundraising, and why AI might not be the silver bullet everyone thinks it is. All right, Mike. Hey, Mike. Mike Powers from BuildVision. So, Mike, you come from the field as an MEP. It's always nice, actually, some people that come from a construction background and actually been there and got the T-shirt. So you come from construction as an MEP and logistics engineer for Turner Construction. Are they like they're like the biggest, or at least?
Yeah, Turner's the largest general contractor. They'll be doing about, I think, 14 billion this year.
Yeah, that's what
when I was there, we were around like 10, 11.
Wow. Okay. You were then at Building Connected. That was with Dustin, right? From
Yeah. It was. It's a funny story actually. I was getting marketing emails while at Turner using Building Connected, and I thought Dustin was emailing me individually, not knowing that there was marketing campaigns. So we started going back and forth. We built a little bit of a friendship, and I convinced him to let me join his team as a sales hire, even though he didn't like hiring construction people as salespeople.
Oh, nice!
You must have done a good job.
Was this email nurturing that got you the job?
It was, and you knew it was email nurturing because it was from D Devan at buildingconnected.com, which was the marketing email, not Dustin at buildingconnected.com.
Ha!
Yeah.
Love it. Love the news.
Yeah.
Okay, after that, so Building Connected were acquired by Autodesk, and so then you were put inside a cage and sent to Autodesk for a little while.
Yeah, incentivized to work at Autodesk. It was amazing. So when we got acquired, we were the largest bid management software in the country. I think 80% of the top 400 general contractors use the software, had about 1 million monthly active users. We were acquired by Autodesk, and we created a group called ACS, which is Autodesk Construction Solutions, which is the culmination of the PlanGrid acquisition, the Assemble acquisition, the Pipe acquisition, the Building Connected acquisition into ACC, Autodesk Construction Cloud. And I ran enterprise sales there for 4 years. So I managed the top 100 accounts across Autodesk, mostly general contractors and mostly subcontractors.
Very nice. And now, drum roll, you're the founder of BuildVision. So we'll dive into BuildVision shortly. But just before we do that, is there something like from your past? It sounds like you had quite a sales focus, so maybe it's something related to that. But is there something that sticks with you that helping you shape BuildVision today?
Yeah, I mean, just like thinking back, the first time I was on a job site when I was 12 years old. My dad took me to Walmart and we got steel toe boots, and he scuffed them up before going on a job site because he didn't want to make me look like a new person. And we would go and measure the elevator shafts. He worked for an elevator contractor for 40 years. So I followed in his footsteps, went to school as a mechanical engineer, worked at a mechanical subcontractor, and then worked at Turner. And then while I was at Turner, Turner does something that's very unique in the industry, is they actually go out and procure a lot of the large mechanical electrical gear for their job sites. So there's a lot of pre-purchasing, and they kind of like led the charge in the early 1990s, 2000s, actually during like the first data center boom. So they go out, they buy about $1 billion worth of equipment annually, and then they sell that to the owner. So that was kind of like the foundational piece of where Build Vision was. I actually talked to Dustin about this at Building Connected. We were going down that path, creating a marketplace, ran out of money, got acquired by Autodesk. But during that time, all the general contractors I was working with were consistently asking about how do we provide more value to our owners and our clients? Because holistically, large GCs don't make money on their construction fee. They make money in other avenues, things like insurance, things like self-perform, and large GCs are starting to do pre-purchasing to create these revenue streams that add value to the owner and to the client so they can open up jobs earlier, things like that. So foundationally, I really learned a lot about it, just like through my experience, just like through my understanding of the industry, and really saw a major gap where really no one else is playing in this space. So we're excited to build a platform that's going to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. So have you, when you were in Turner Construction, did you like ever thought about setting up a company or startup, or that happens later? I'm just curious.
I went to go work at a startup. Yeah, I went to go work at a startup. I didn't think I could do it myself. And I was able to go work at Building Connected as like the 25th employee. We had like $100,000 of revenue. So super, super early. One of the first sales hires in the New York City office. And we scaled the team. I sold a lot of really, really large customers, built a lot of strong relationships. So it was a good experience.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what's the vision of the Build Vision?
The Build Vision is a procurement network that brings all stakeholders onto a common platform to source, procure, finance, track, and ship all components on a construction job site. Our first pitch is to go after large mechanical electrical gear, things that are long lead time, very engineered systems, very, very high cost, and all critical path pieces of equipment for job sites.
Yeah. So essentially, if I understand it, you're connecting the supply chain from the very, very beginning. Like, did you say manufacturers?
Yeah.
Yeah, all the way through to when it's actually installed on site.
Yeah. It's a pretty crazy world right now. So like the current process is, say you're designing a data center, and an engineer sat at a conference with Google 18 months ago and designed a building with 3 megawatt generators. So they'll go back, they'll start drawing and design the building. They'll place those 8 megawatt generators in the drawings. That's kind of like the least complicated piece in that, because they have to do all the downstream conduit and all the coordination planning. So that thing will sit in the drawings as they design the rest, go from DD to construction drawings. And then it goes out to bid. It goes out for 6 months, back and forth communications. And then 6 months after that, the manufacturer is notified that the project has been awarded. And during that time, and this is a real world example, the lead time went from 50 weeks to 150 weeks. And there's really no way to swap that out because the communication is just so broken. And then on the reverse end of that, that manufacturer might produce that generator for $1 million, and the owner ends up paying $2 million because everyone's hands in the cookie jar during that process. So our platform is to allow contractors to release equipment earlier, know what's available, give direct pricing to owners for better economies of scale, and give them insights into what the supply chain looks like for those components.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So are you dealing right now with the data centers only, or are you going broader with into other verticals?
Yeah, so our ICP is large general contractors. So we're working with the top 100 general contractors that have capacity. So one customer we're working with bids out about 1,000 projects every quarter. So there's a lot of projects going through the platform. We then aggregate that for them, give them insights into which manufacturers are working across all their projects. Because one of the theses that we're proving is general contractors and contractors can start thinking about their portfolio as opposed to project by project buying, and look at like, hey, in the next 90 days, I'm going to buy 35 generators. Let's go to the big generator manufacturers and get competitive quotes on the 35 generators as opposed to just going to one project and getting one generator.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the scale of that is like, we'll build capacity, and then ideally we'll be able to allow any contractor to access the procurement network. But right now it's very much about like large GCs with large OEMs.
Yeah. Did you pick mechanical electrical equipment for a particular reason?
Yeah, I think marketplaces and procurement networks can only work in construction for non-commoditized items. Anything you can buy at a local distributor, it's very, very hard to get economies of scale, or anything that you don't want to ship across country, or shipping 2x4s from Paris is very, very expensive, but shipping a generator from London to Paris makes sense. So we're really focusing on these things that it makes logical sense, and there's lots of markups in the process. So mechanical electrical gear is kind of that leading edge right now.
Yeah. And would there be plans to explore maybe other areas? You don't have to give away the secret.
Yeah. We're going to do anything that's engineered. So anything that's engineered or designed components, we'll go after. That's where we see the value prop for the consumer and the customer.
I'm curious, how did you look at like total addressable market of the service, or a product?
Mechanical electrical subcontractors encompass about 30% of all construction costs on a large hospital, a large data center, a large residential. And about half that cost is material. So things like gear all the way down to copper wire. So the market's massive. And you look at like the large OEMs, like the Trains of the world, the Carriers of the world, the Daikin's of the world, are all multi-billion-dollar companies where the majority of that revenue is coming from commercial construction projects.
Mm-hmm. And your current like charging structure, is it per project or per like subscription or per seat?
My contrarian take is I don't think construction tech can absorb another $100 million a year revenue business for SaaS fees outside of project management. And if you look at like the successful companies, the Procores, the Trimbles, and the Autodesk of the world, it's project management. Mm-hmm. So our model is like to pretty much give access to our procurement network at no cost. There's some advanced fees. There's some advanced functionality. There's some SaaS fees built on that, but that's just to kind of keep the lights on. And the real value prop that we want to go towards is facilitating transactions that are more efficient than the market can currently sustain, offering financial services, and offering transportation services on top of that. And our two gold star things that we're shooting for is one is capacity. So right now we have about $600 to $700 million of equipment flowing through the platform. And they were all about providing enough value to that end customer that we can take a portion of that capture. So this mindset of like, hey, we're just going to charge a SaaS fee, and there might not be a return on investment, doesn't make sense in our world, specifically construction. And it's more about like, hey, we can go to a GC, we can create a revenue stream for you by allowing you to buy equipment that's cheaper than you can buy in the current market. You can sell that to the owner at a markup, and we want to take a cut of the markup that you're providing. So unless you make money, the only way we make money is if you make money.
What's the percentage, if you can share? Like what?
So it's very dynamic. It's based on how large of a contractor you are and how much capacity is going through the platform. So it could range from like 0.1% on $1 billion of buying to 10-15% for a larger contractor.
Mm-hmm. So only if they purchase it, then you take the cut of whatever percentage it is.
Yeah, think of it like, because there's all these different avenues outside of SaaS that
so you only get paid when you're useful, right?
Yeah.
I really like it. I really like it because we will charge you for 57 seats and all of the. Oh my goodness, it's just.
I mean, that whole thesis is like it's really starting to break down, specifically with like some of the new advanced AI tools that can program technology very quickly. Like general contractors don't have money sitting in like a bank account that's like, hey, you have $1 million to buy software. It doesn't exist. And you hear like there's a thing called FreeCon where like large GCs literally spend hundreds of thousands of dollars in man hours to help owners design buildings. And the goal is like, hey, we win the building and then we can charge a fee. So taking money out of like an account that's not necessarily there is a very hard struggle. And we saw that with Building Connected. I've been through 3 like 0 to 1 startups, and every one of them have kind of like puttered out at 10, 15, 20 million in revenue. And in order to have a venture-backed business, I mean, the market's asking for $100 to $1 billion of revenue. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of like metrics that you got to look at. And when we're building this business, like we want to IPO, we want to become a very large business. So we're going to take some moonshots. And that's the value we want to provide to the customer.
Mm-hmm. Also, sorry, go on.
I'm just interested to how you came to that pricing conclusion, because we debate it quite a bit on here, and actually I do agree, and I'm sure Martin agrees with you as well.
It's my favorite question.
We don't need another like SaaS price solution in construction
Yeah.
tech. So, yeah, where, how did you get to that like way that thesis?
Yeah, I mean, from the industry, so every large general contractor in the States offer two insurance policies, CSIP and SDI. CSIP is contractor controlled insurance and SDI is subcontractor default insurance. So instead of bonding a subcontractor, they'll do SDI, and then if the subcontractor runs out of money, they'll swap it out. And those are both profit centers for general contractors. So they'll make more money doing that than actually building the building. And if you look at like the margins on a construction site, a $400 million hospital, a large GC is making a 1% to 2% fee. That's $4 to $8 million. That's split out over 4 years, $1 to $2 million a year. You have 10, 20 employees on the job. Like there isn't money there. What you can do with, and like what Procore has been successful and Autodesk has been successful is like you just charge a fee that you pass back off to the owner. But it makes sense. It's on a specific project. But as you look at things across the company portfolio or across the GC portfolio, you really need to focus on like how do you actually provide value to the end user.
So moving forward, in your understanding of the pricing structure and construction tech, what companies should be charging based on what companies should be charging on the volume of like
the value you provide. It's got to be the value you provide. I was talking to a CTO is like, a CTO told me that he goes, if I had the cost savings of every construction software that they promised me, I would never have to build a building again. You have to provide real value. It's like, how do you open a project sooner? It's a residential building and you're getting rent on that residential building and you can open it 3 months quicker by using a tech solution, that's money in the bank.
Yes. So we spoke with so many people, and no, I don't think there's plenty who would say something like you just said. Yes, I really like this actually, because people love to say, "Oh, we will charge like 1% of construction value," and
that'd be great.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. But then you have few different software or SaaS solutions on the project, and each of them amounts to 0.1, 0.5, 0.1, and you're increasing automatically the construction cost of this project. And like, how do you then measure tangible saving on your tech on the project? So, and yeah, it's a.
I think an interesting model there is you tie it to the profit of the company on that project. So it's not the size of the project, it's how much money you make. So if you're saying that you're saving money by reducing change orders, for example, take a cut of the prove of that change order.
Very refreshing.
Yeah. You're also assuming that people make profits on construction projects.
Exactly.
which is definitely not the case all the time.
Yeah.
Mike, you mentioned.
Sorry, Mike.
You want to go? All right, go on.
No, go on. You said you were further than me.
Okay, so you mentioned that this is one of your contrarian takes. What are others? I'm so curious.
Yeah, I think you're a bold guy. Come on, let's spill some beans.
Yeah.
But remember, don't lose customers.
I don't think AI is going to revolutionize the construction space for the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah. Explain.
I think AI is very good at back office tasks, and that can improve those. But if you like thinking about a superintendent that's on a job site and leveraging AI on a project that's a unique snowflake that's nothing like anything else that's ever been built, is very, very hard. The way AI is set up now is they're large language models, which are just trained on data. But how do they know what the accurate data is? A drawing is there's things called as-built because the drawings are never right. We still operate in a 2D world. Just spent the last 10 years digitizing construction. Like we finally have gotten things from my first job out of college, I was folding over 42-inch documents to say like this was outdated and folded the corner over and said, this is bulletin number 2. That was 10 years ago. Now we've gotten to a point where like a PlanGrid can go in there and you can see the updated drawing. There's baby steps that need to happen before we can get to a point where you're making an AI engine that tells you answers.
Yeah.
Look at the big picture. Like Autodesk has been doing generative AI design for 5, 10 years now. I think that's very, very powerful because you're sitting at a computer, you're going through a workflow that's step by step, like I need to do X, Y, and Z, and it's giving you suggestions around that. But once you get downstream from that, it's very, very complicated.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. That's back office will be definitely improved, but then like that, nothing super tangible will come out of it. Like what is very interesting, we recently found out visiting Monumental, it's a bricklaying robots last week, is that the amount of data that they capture on site and then use AI to train the robots based on this. That is very interesting space, but it's not going to happen straight away. There's probably years. Yeah,
and it's not ChatGPT LLMs. Like we're using AI to scrape data from drawings. So we have a way to automatically scrape down mechanical electrical schedules from a drawing set. It's just machine learning. It's just data science. It's saying this table has a 99% chance of being here, but it's not like projecting out. That's like, hey, this system can replace that system. Like that's all just data. It's like very, very strong data science that has like foundational pieces that you can make guesstimates on. And that's what we're shooting towards. Like, it's more of like, hey, how do we normalize all this data that's on a PDF? I mean, major manufacturers have their entire catalog on PDFs right now. So we're just digitizing it. So I think before you even go down the path of like creating like a ChatGPT or LLM, as one engineer would say, he called it HVAC GPT, where it's like, do we actually get a 10x engineer at some point? Possibly, but it's a long way down the road.
Miles away. Mark, I'm like intrigued about how you were convicted in Build Vision. Like, was there a specific experience or problem that you saw recurring, and then like what made you finally go, you know what, I'm gonna dedicate my good chunk of my life to this?
I think it all started when I was at Turner, we ran this issue consistently. These large pieces of equipment are all critical path. And one example is we went out to bid for a air handling unit. At some point during that process, someone took a red pen and squiggled out and removed the smoke dampeners on the product drawings for the air handling units. So 6 months before I came on board, that happened. I take over the project. I'm 23 years old out of college, excited to go to the factory testing to check everything out. We get to the factory testing and there's no smoke dampeners on the unit. So I'm standing there with the owner's rep, the mechanical subcontractor, the local rep for the manufacturer, and my boss. And everyone looks at me and goes, where are the smoke dampeners? And, we could go back in our email and figure that out. But that change cost us $175,000 at that factory, where we had to cut a check to release it. Where if we would have caught it in the design phase, it would have been a $10,000 change.
Wow.
And that foundational piece, there's so much value that needs to be added during that supply. And then, going through the path of Building Connected was foundationally built off of a network, which a lot of tech solutions aren't. And there's so much value in construction around these networks. And that was like the next piece of like, all right, how do you create a communication platform where all these different parties can be in one platform and get exchange value? And then the third piece was, after every general contractor is now really looking at like, how do we provide value to our end customers, and how do we figure out how to get lead times under control? So one of the pain points right now in the industry is like, if a generator or a switchgear has a long lead time and you're in the design phase of the project, the engineer doesn't want to award a subcontractor to release that equipment yet because the drawings are in DD. Because if they awarded a DD, then there's going to be tens of thousands of change orders on those documents by that subcontractor. So an engineer is looking, goes, how do we do this? Well, who's the party that's privy to that information? Is the general contractor. The general contractor is willing to take that risk to release that equipment earlier. Our platform allows them to do that more effectively. We can take on a lot of the risk. We can take on the expertise of being a solution that says, hey, this is the right piece of equipment for the right job and the right lead time that you need. And that this streamlines communication and makes everybody better. Because that change, that $175,000 smoke dampener change, wasn't the end of the world. But these things happen all the time where the wrong switchgear was bought, the wrong chiller was bought. And that change destroys the entire project. and no one's making money. At the end of the game, like everyone here is in a business to make money. And how do we help each one of those users make more money?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm curious if there are any other similar participants on the market right now as you guys, and if yes, how do you differentiate from them?
Yeah, most of the procurement networks out there are very focused on project by project, subcontractor distributor relationship, and that's a very challenging space. We're really focused on looking at general contractors, manufacturers, and their portfolios, and looking at how they can leverage their buying power to get better pricing. So there really isn't much in the space that's touching this. Yeah, I can't think of like, I know a lot of the players that are in the distributor, subcontractor space, but no one's really focused on mechanical, electrical gear like we are.
Very good. Do you know what the rough size of the market is?
For mechanical, electrical gear or procurement? Yeah, it's close to like, I think like the last numbers we looked at in the States is like $200 to $300 million, $2 to $300 billion of mechanical electrical gear that's bought annually. And that's only going up as we build more.
Yeah. Well, because of the demand of data centers and stuff, do you think that's had like a big impact?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think like there's a storm coming. I know you guys talked a little bit about this in your last podcast, but like the increase in like, I mean, I was looking at these numbers this morning. We're going from like...
Hey listeners, I want to take a quick break to remind you about the Bricks and Bytes newsletter. If you're interested in learning about the technology shaping the future of construction, you won't want to miss the valuable insights we share each week. To get this exclusive content delivered straight to your inbox, head over to www.bricks-bytes.com and sign up today. Link is in the show notes. Back to the show.
The estimate right now we do in the US has 126 terawatt hours of electric generation. And the range for 2030 is 335 to 390 terawatt hours.
3x, beautiful. How?
Sounds like they need to come up with a new word.
And all right, that's one piece. But like, if you talk about like the picks and shovels of the gold rush, is like what makes that data center? A data center is 90 or 70% mechanical electrical gear. These manufacturers are trying to figure out how to produce more effectively and quicker, because there's so much demand right now. We talked to one generator manufacturer, a data center data center builder came in and bought 18 months worth of manufacturing capacity.
Wow.
Brilliant.
The manufacturer didn't even want that though, because like if the manufacturer has 18 months of slots picked out for those specific pieces of components, like what do you do with the sales team that's selling equipment for 18 months?
Yes. Yeah.
I think it's of course.
I think as much as everyone would like to be in position like that, in my head it generates a bunch of risks as well. Being dependent to one kind of vendor, right? That's a huge risk in a business. I think it's just
they're doing some creative things. I was talking to someone from Kohler, which is a large generator manufacturer in the States, and data centers are starting to box out systems. And what that means is like there'll be, for generators specifically, there'll be like a Cummins section, there'll be a Caterpillar section, there'll be a Kohler section, and there'll be a Detroit Diesel section. And each system will rely on like it's kind of its own self-sustaining entity. But because they can't get, like Kohler cannot fulfill the capacity of that entire data center, it doesn't want to, they're going to have to start breaking down these pieces and collaborating a lot more effectively early on.
Wow. Sounds messy. Yeah. Sounds like there'll be a startup in a few years that helps integrate all of these different systems together. Where are you? So you guys, whereabouts, like, if this is even possible to answer, are you in the journey? So obviously you have a product, you're generating revenue, from what I understand.
Yeah, we're like 1%. Like I founded the company this time last year. It's about a year ago. Brought my technical co-founder on in September, raised our pre-seed round, and then launched our product officially to market in January. We have a pretty like close-knit group of customers that we're working with, just building capacity. And then we just closed our seed round. So we're super, super early in the process. this is like a 10, 15, 20-year journey. It's not something that's going to be replaced overnight. And we're just continuously trying to add as much value to the customer as possible.
Yeah. So you mentioned seed, pre-seed.
Yeah.
Did you say seed?
Yeah. So we just closed our seed round 3 weeks ago, led by Crosslink Capital. We raised $3 million. And then we raised our pre-seed in September for about $780,000 from Euclid Ventures. The partner there, his name's Omar. He was actually on the Building Connected board from Crosslink. So kind of have known him for a while and built a really strong relationship.
We met Omar.
Yeah, his
he will be released soon.
Tomorrow, is it?
Yeah, perhaps.
Or Friday.
What's your, speaking of like seed rounds and venture investments, what's your like profitability path? How do you see achieving this?
Yeah, I mean, to have a venture scale, you have to balance that very aggressively. I've talked to a lot of VCs, and they're more nervous about companies that are just a little bit profitable that have like 5 to 10 million of revenue, because that's not a venture-backed outcome. So we're balancing, like we're like threading this needle of spending money effectively and efficiently to grow and scale as fast as possible. Because we want to get to these, 100, 200, $300 million revenue targets in the next 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a balance. It's a very aggressive balance. And like, there's other paths to find, money, like through PE paths, through bootstrapping paths. But like, if you want VC outcomes, you have to like have very high like metrics that you're shooting for.
Yeah, I'm interested in your experience, Mike, as well, fundraising. Like, how it went in the early days, and any struggles.
Yeah. I have a list of like 100 VCs that I talked to from a while back, and I never really had really good luck with like just construction specific VCs. I think because I just had a contrarian look on a lot of what they're looking for. And then I've talked to Omar before, and then Omar, actually Dustin from Building Connected, like gave Omar the thumbs up that this was an interesting idea. So having that relationship, having that connection with Dustin really helped that first process. And then Omar is a great partner to be a first check-in, and he like shepherded me through the rest of the fundraising process. Helped me make a bunch of introductions, and the lead partner at Crosslink, her name is Gabby. I was actually giving Gabby construction tech advice for the last couple of years. She would call and be like, "Hey, what are your thoughts on this? What are your thoughts on that?" So kind of I just built that relationship, and couldn't ask for a better partner. She understands what we're looking for. She understands that like there's going to be some misses in our execution, but like that's the partner we wanted to go with.
Okay, so this 2023 and early this year, was it a good time to raise money in your view, or was it a little bit challenging from maybe some other macro more point of view, or it was fairly?
There's a lot of money. There's a lot of money like going around. It's just like, is it a unique value prop that you're providing the industry? Like our take is that like, hey, we're not going, because like in the SaaS world, it's like you go 0 to 1 million and then 1 million to 10 million. You kind of just stack it up. And we would go into meetings and be like, that's just not how we're going to improve our industry. Like, we're not going to be able to solve a problem by doing that. We've done this too many times. We see how this play out. Everyone kind of taps out at 10 million in revenue. So we're taking some shots. Like, we're like, hey, build capacity. We literally have an equation on our board deck that's like capacity plus capture equals build vision success. Capacity is how much equipment's flowing through our software. And then capture is what % of that can we take? And that's everything from SaaS to financing fees, to transaction fees, logistics fees, to service fees. And it's just like, how do we build that capture as much as possible? And that's our Northern Star of success.
Sounds like a simple model.
Yeah.
Did you find like what was your experience in dealing with like sector specific like specialists within construction tech versus more generalist? And I think that the fund you raised now is a more of a generalist fund. Is that right?
Yeah, Crosslink is definitely more of a generalist fund. Gabby has made marketplace investments before, so she understands like the thesis behind what we're trying to do. I just like, there's so many like things that can go wrong in construction, and I think everyone has a very, very narrow view of like what they think can be successful. So we wanted to really take a step out and focus on VCs that were more generalists. I mean, I've had some funny conversations where VCs have told me, like construction specific VCs have told me that this was tried in the 1990s and didn't work then.
Really?
So it's not going to work now. And my response was like, I was born in the 90s. I can't tell you if that worked or not.
You can name and shame them if you like.
No, I mean, there's so many cool things going on in construction tech that like there's no harm in like talking to VCs outside of that space. And you know, during the process, like we started our seed fundraise and we like went to market, and Gabby and Crosslink were so excited they like pretty much preempted the round. So we were like more than happy to just move forward with them and start building and not have to like play the game of going back out to market to try to raise more money.
So Mike, tricky question. So it was not working in 1990s. Why do you think it's gonna work now?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One is I think we've got to this revolution of digitizing construction, so things are in the cloud. We have a really, really effective way of capturing data right now. Build Vision specifically is like, hey, you're a general contractor that uses Building Connected for bid management or any other bid management software. You can sign in here and we'll aggregate the last 6 months of your projects within 30 minutes. So doing that 20 years ago, 30 years ago would have never been able to happen because documents were in the cloud. And I think two is just really around like GCs are really looking at like, how do we become more profitable businesses? And we've seen a construction fee reduction pretty drastic. Like you could look 10 years ago and get 10%, and now you're at 1-2%. So they're trying to find other avenues for revenue. And one of the overarching theses we have is like, GCs have become really strong insurance players. So they're insuring their own projects. They're starting to do self-perform. The next logical step is like, why not buy the strategic pieces of material and equipment that you need for a job site? Their incentives are the most aligned with an owner and with that outcome. Because like if you look at like a GMP project, it's like, hey, how do we build this project on time, under budget, in the most effective way possible? And this tool helps them do that. And buying equipment helps them do that.
Mm-hmm. So does your product have any like a marketplace features, or I've missed it when you said that? As in, like, can you help someone to like find the cheapest bid for a particular item?
Yeah, I don't think construction that's a challenge specifically is like a marketplace, and this is what like was happening. This is what they tried to do in the 90s was like have this like reverse auction system of, hey, everyone's like very, very like visible on pricing. And specifically mechanical electrical gear, it's like not that simple.
It's bare bespoke, I guess, right? More
bespoke. You'll never go to a website and be like, oh, the Cummins generator is $1 million. Just because there's so many different parts, there's so many different rules and regulations. Like if you're in California, for example, you need like a sound actuator to reduce the noise. You need like certain like exhaust filtration because of the fumes that are coming out of the generator. We can train them, like we were training data around that to make that decision more effective. But it's going to be very, very hard for anyone just to go to a website and be like, hey, I want click to buy. And that's what we're calling a procurement network, because it's a process along with that. It's about sourcing, it's about procuring, it's about financing, and it's about getting the piece of equipment to the job site, and then it's about turning it over. So there's all these different steps in that process. So it's very, 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 very manual. And we've looked at companies like Rebus, for example, which is like a steel marketplace procurement network, as kind of as a very good model of what they've been able to do successfully. So things like that, we seem to make a lot more sense for us.
Mm-hmm. Do you like, Mike? I'm not sure if you had much experience with working with VCs like in your previous ventures, but how did you sort of get yourself up to speed with how these people work, and then to follow on, like how do you currently work with them?
Yeah, so understanding how VCs work, I went to a
impossible.
It was like an accelerator. It's called On Deck, which like it's a 5-week program out in San Francisco that like kind of teaches you the foundations. But honestly, like the best help I've ever gotten are from other founders. So we talked about Dustin, and then another person that's been super helpful is Justin Levine from Shepherd. I worked with him when he was at TradeTap back in the day. People are just like very, very helpful in the industry. Like when you're like trying to solve a problem, just like asking founders, asking people that have been through it, their best practices and their thoughts, was the most impactful and helpful during the process.
Yeah, and your current people you work with, like, what's the process? Do they sit on a board?
Are you on WhatsApp?
Yeah. So yeah. So we did a price round. So there's kind of two different models in the market. You can either through a safe or a price round. We did our pre-seed through a safe, and then we did our last round as a price round. And with that, we brought Gabby on as a board member, which we're super excited about. So we had quarterly board meetings, but in reality, like the best part is I can literally call her on a Sunday night at 10:30 p.m. and she'll answer the phone.
Wow.
Same with Omar. We have like a text group that's called Build Visionaries, which is me, Omar, Gabby, and my co-founder Christoph. And like that's value for me. Like, right, it's like, hey, just like be a sounding board. We just we sent out an offer letter to like a really strategic hire, and Gabby interviewed the person and sat with the person for an hour and gave great feedback on like, here's what to look for, here's not what to look for. And like that's the partners. Like this is a journey, and we wanted someone that's like, we can go back and have, hard conversations and be a part of that journey. And the one thing I did was, and any founders out there that are raising is like, ask the partner that you're dealing with as a VC firm to talk to other founders that were unsuccessful in raising their next round. And that's a great way to filter out, like, how did that founder get treated by that VC firm when they weren't successful? And I talked to 4 or 5 people that were at Crosslink before, and nothing but great things were said. You're trying to like find the snakes in the closet, and everything was great. So just things like that. It's like when things are going great, it's fine, it's easy, it's amazing. But it's when things become a challenge, like, is that person in your corner that's going to like fight for you? And I feel that with everybody out that's been an investor.
Yeah.
Mike, so one of popular venture capitalists in construction technology space says that you, as a founder, you need to sell $1 million of your product or service before you employ VP of sales, for example.
Yeah.
Have you sold yet?
Have we sold yet? I've sold software, yes. Not $1 million yet, though. I mean, the contrarian take of that is when I joined Building Connected, we were not at $1 million in revenue, and we had a VP of sales.
Mm-hmm. So not necessarily this rule applies to reality.
Yeah. Again, going back to like the cookie cutter SaaS model. Yes. Like if you're going to 0 to 1, the 1 to 10, the 10 to 100, like there's playbooks out there that are very successful. Like when there's 30,000 people that you can sell to that are ICP and media entertainment that you can go after, and you can sell them because they have budget, they have buying power. Yeah. Construction is just a different animal. Like if you look at the successful exits of these companies, like the journey, like the different journey that like Procore went on and Planford went on or Autodesk went on is so unique. It's just like a project. It's like each one's a snowflake.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't paint people with the same brush, right?
No.
Yeah. What's your take on like team building within Build Vision?
Yeah, I always want to hire people that are smarter than me. So we just put out an offer and to a person that has been in the space longer than me, not a VP of sales. I've been in the space longer than me, understand the intricacies more than I do, and like find like the areas that I don't think I'm very good at and pushing towards success there. So like we're building a team, we're remote first. We really, really focus on people that are, very self-sufficient, very, very successful. And we're doing like a lot of offshoring as well. We've had really good luck hiring a couple engineers down in South America. But yeah, just really building a strong team and trying to keep our burn as low as possible.
Yeah. Mike, you coming from a sales background as well. I'm interested to hear like what
Mhm.
your advice for people is. Like, is there a playbook? And maybe we can start with go to market.
Yeah. The playbook for being successful in construction is you have to pick up the phone. Um, you're
Oh,
never going to sell your product by just sending emails.
Hmm. Interesting.
so so what do we need to do?
So smile and dial. We literally had we had a cheat sheet on our now it's in all reality, it's like you have to like construction, like if you go back to like every construction person I've ever worked with is so passionate about what they do. Like my dad has skylines of every city he's worked in, and he'll point buildings out that have the elevators that he installed in. So you're thinking about like that foundational piece of like these are very, very passionate people what they do. Just coming in and saying, I have a tech solution that's going to fix all your problems is going to get you laughed out of the door. You got to spend time with the customer, figure out like what the actual pain point is and what's like the first principal problem that you're going to solve. And go meet with them, like go break bread. I mean, like one thing that PlanGrid did early on was they would go and bring donuts to job sites. Great ways to like engage with people. You have to meet the customer where they are. So like sending an email, being like, "Hey, we can increase your, increase your productivity by 10% on a project." Like, what does that even mean?
Exactly.
You're thinking about a superintendent. Like, I've met superintendents that have been swinging steel for 50 years. What are their day-to-day pain points? It's not that the iPad brightness goes up or down, or you can change the color of the marker that marks up the drawings. It's the struggle of safety that like they're swinging steel off the side of a building and they want to make sure that each one of those each one of those people get home to their families. Um, they want to make sure that the project is profitable. Like all these different metrics, you got to really think about first principle problems, and drive towards those value props as opposed to just being like this fancy shiny new. That's another point solution.
Yeah. How do you like do you have any advice or tips for people that like looking to penetrate to the decision makers within the large organizations?
Make them money.
Make them money.
What's like a successful decision maker at a construction company is making money how? They have a bonus structure at the end of the year, and how profitable are the projects. So can you prove that you open a project quicker, you became more profitable, you reduce the amount of change orders, you reduce the amount of risk? Like those are profitable avenues that you can go after. Like that's going to bring value to that decision maker. And then also find champions that are excited about the solution. Find people that are younger, that are hungry, that want to use tech, um, and make them become your champion. And like find that pilot project where you make it open quicker, it was under budget, and that's what you go sell. Money talks in the industry, and like those are the value props that are going to be better across the board.
So that's your strategy as well, to do trials with corporates and then convince them through these trials that they will save money, or what's your strategy?
Yeah. So we're doing it a little different, right? Because we're not pushing SaaS. So like our goal is just like, hey, bring capacity. We'll be able to get you lead times. We'll be able to get you better pricing. We'll be able to get you insight into your supply chain. Our initial push has been after large general contractors where we can just aggregate their projects for them. So it goes from $0 to $1 billion worth of projects overnight. So it's a little bit of a unique strategy. And then we have a team that's going to go out and just like talk and handhold all these users to make sure they're using the platform correctly on both sides of that procurement network. Again, our goal is like build capture and build capacity. So there's all these different metrics that we're driving towards. But if you're like looking at like a project-based solution that's like, hey, we have a PM tool, we have a safety tool, we have an insurance tool that's going to help you do X, Y, or Z. It's got to be very, very focused on like, how is that project becoming successful because of the tool that you're providing?
Mm-hmm. In case of Build Vision, has this always been the strategy that you just described, or you started with something different and this evolved because X, Y, Z?
I'm trying to think of the first thing. I know, because I feel like having like gone through a lot of these different motions before, we kind of knew that SaaS wasn't going to work. So it's just been about like testing different monetization mechanisms. Like where can we provide extreme value to that customer across the board? Initially, I wanted to be like a white glove service that was like, hey, we'll do the entire process for you. But that's not scalable. So we're like really focusing on like how can we use technology to make a manufacturer's rep 10 times more efficient, right? Like a manufacturer's rep might be able to buy $20 million worth of equipment in their territory. How do we scale that up to 100 million with the same, type of person? And do the same thing on the general contractor or the subcontractor side.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. What is like your strategy mostly outbound? I guess in the early days it kind of has to be. Do you see like a future where it's like, let's just pick something like content marketing? Do you think that would be like a viable route for you guys?
Once we get capacity, we're literally going to have a link on our website that says, hey, come sign in here and we'll aggregate your projects for you for free. We did this at a conference a couple weeks ago. It was super, super successful. So like there's definitely a product-led motion there for smaller contractors, smaller manufacturers that can manage that procurement side. But because we're creating a new transaction, there's a lot of hand-holding at the start. And we're willing to spend the time to like sit with customers to make sure it's successful. An advice I got from a CEO of another marketplace procurement software was at the beginning, if someone messed up in the process, they would just pay to fix it. Because like the end day, the brand loyalty is all that matter, and Build Vision wants to be is going to be the trusted platform for all of commercial construction. So doing little things like that to build your brand loyalty is very, very important. But we also want to like control who has access to the software. We don't want like random people like posting, hey, I have this switchgear. There's regulations, there's restrictions, there's quality control that we need to manage. So it's a very, very like nurtured network.
Mm-hmm. You touched on this earlier that you don't believe that AI will dominate the construction tech in any shape or form in 5 or 10 years. But is Build Vision like an AI enabled, or they're using any machine?
Yeah, our joke during our announcement. One of our engineers is named Naras, and he built a tool to data scrape like a lot of data. So we called it Naras AI. But again, like the definition of AI is so fuzzy. Is it data mining and machine learning, or is it LLMs? Data mining, machine learning is amazing. We're using that every day in and out in the back end to make a better customer experience. But using an LLM to like produce something, I don't think is that valuable. It's about like the back office pieces of like, hey, take something that's super technical and make it explain to me like I'm 5. It's, summarize this really, really long spec sheet and pull up things that are important to me. Like those things are valuable, but they're back office things. So that's kind of where our position is. And our, like the manufacturers reps have such like an expertise that's in their head that's not on paper somewhere. It's hard to train a model around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there wouldn't, in your instance, there just probably wouldn't be enough kind of, data available. I mean, that's even applicable to the state of construction data anyway, but especially in your case where it's even a layer below that niche that it just wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
So from sales to founder, what's the biggest transition headaches that you've come across?
So like in sales, you're always promising the customer the world. And in engineers, you're always building like atom by atom. And that connection point is very, very tough.
But you have very grounded. I think I have the feeling from you that you have very grounded approach to things. So you're not like super salesy in a way that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I think that like that path is very, very challenging. So we actually brought on someone that was a product manager at Building Connected to help us like connect those dots. Where Christoph, my CTO, is very, very intelligent and can figure out how to build the atoms. And I can kind of like talk to the future, and it's about connecting those 2 points together and finding like what are the step-by-steps that are getting us to that point. Because like in 5 years, we want to be at this point X, but there's a million different steps for us to get there. And where is the best value to the customer? Where's the best value to the software that we're building, and how does it drive towards those metrics?
Yeah. Did your technical person come from construction?
Yeah, he was actually one of the early engineers at Building Connected.
Okay, fine. So at least he has a little bit of understanding, because I can't imagine the struggle trying to translate to one, a technical person as a non-technical, and then 2 non-technical technical coming with no construction background. Sounds Sounds like a challenge I would never be asked to take on.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like you look at these successful construction tech companies. I mean, what is it? 90% have a construction co-founder, construction-backed co-founder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Have we asked about current product versus what product would you like to have in, let's say, 2, 3, 5 years? What you thinking of adding to it?
Yeah, our initial like going back to this idea of like capturing capacity as our Northern Lights. Our first pitch was like this identification tool. So right now, everything is like siloed on an email on some sort of database. So we're normalizing all of the construction data for mechanical electrical gear. So we're calling Identify. We can instantaneously grab and look at your drawings and say exactly what manufacturers you're working with, what components are assigned as base design. And then we've normalized all the product data on the back end for all the manufacturers. So we can start automatically pairing those together. So if you're on a project, you're looking for a 1,000-ton chiller, an air-cooled chiller, and the basic design is Trane, our software is smart enough to go through and say, well, here's the comparable components that are air-cooled 1,000-ton chillers from Carrier, York, Daikin. So automatically normalize that. This is its first goal of identification. And then the next piece is now we're calling RFQ, which is like request for quote. So first pass is you have this design package. How do you send that digitally to a manufacturer have to get a price. And now we're looking at nodes off of that. So, all right, we're on one project and Daikin was the basic design. All right, well, let's go out to Trane, let's go out to Carrier, let's go out to York to go get competitive pricing on that one project. Let's take a lens out and let's go, all right, well, I have 5 projects that are bidding out right now. On those 5 projects, York is on 3 of them. Well, why don't I get pricing for York on all 5 of them? And why don't I get pricing from all 4 manufacturers on all 5 of them? So that's kind of like continually pulling data around that unique identification. And then outside of that, it's also allowing manufacturers to provide quotes on components that are in the spec, but they weren't spec for. So if you look at a chiller could be York, Daikin, Carrier, or Trane. Then you go to the air conditioning unit, it could be York, Carrier, Daikin, or Trane. So giving them exposure to components that they might not know about and leveraging data to give them insights into like what's the percentage of them winning that project.
Is it just US you're focused on as well, thinking about future plans?
Yeah, right now we're just US based, but the platform's built where like it can go anywhere, and we're starting to get a little pull from international entities. One thing that's unique about like EMEA, EU, and Australia is a lot of manufacturers do direct there, where in the States they do it through dealerships and distributors. So there's a lot less friction outside of the United States because of that.
Yeah. Sounds good. Okay, Mike, random question, but what do you think you would not be doing if you were not building Build Vision?
If I was not building Build Vision, I was not building Build Vision. I'd be trying to figure out how to build Vision. This is all I've thought about I know that's the cop-out answer. This is all I've thought about for 10 years. Like I want this to be my brand. Like my life goal is to build this solution.
No musician or something like that?
No musician, not musically talented. Yeah. You know, I was an engineer, so I understand like how things work, but like this is the culmination of everything I've worked for so far.
Very good.
Mike, I just wanted to one more time touch on the SaaS. So you spent a little bit more than 3 years in Autodesk. Would you say that Autodesk has SaaS products?
They have SaaS products, but they also have things that are called tokens. So I can't think of like in the States we say Chuck E. Cheese, where like you go to like there's a building that has a bunch of different video games that you can play, and everyone has like a coin, and that business sells their one coin that they can play on any of those video games. That's how Autodesk tokens work, where you buy tokens and you can use it for any of their solutions. So at a large enterprise level, which I was selling into, it was all token based. So you'd get 1 million tokens, and if you signed into Revit, it would be a token. If you signed into PlanGrid, it'd be a token. So that would kind of like buying the tranches of that.
You accidentally hit the wrong button and it takes 500 tokens. You saved the wrong file. Minus 250.
Yeah. And then Autodesk also had the flexibility of they would do seats and they would also do volume based. So you could buy 100 seats of PlanGrid, 100 seats of Building Connected, or you could buy a $1 billion project PlanGrid or Building Connected, and there'd be a price for that.
What do you think about their pricing structures for their like most common products?
For their most common products, like the design products?
Yeah. Please.
The design products, the design products make a lot of sense because engineers and architects charge by the hour. So it's a lot easier for Autodesk to provide buckets that like, hey, I was in Revit for 7 hours and it cost me $700. That's 7 hours of work saved 70 hours of work. So like that's the value prop that they provide. And then that engineer can just bill the owner $1 extra an hour because they used Revit or AutoCAD or any tool like that. Very, very logical. Makes a lot of sense. When you get downstream to construction, each construction project's different. Each business model is very unique, and it's hard to bill back. And owners are now starting to get privy that's like, why is there a 1% tech fee on all my projects? So you're doing $1 billion worth of work and a 1% fee. So you're saying you're spending $10 million a year on software? So like it's like that's where they start catching themselves, where it's like the hourly base makes a lot of sense. And that's where Autodesk is very, very successful. And I don't think anyone's figured out the construction model yet.
What's your thoughts on the deflationary nature of technology? Because it doesn't seem like it happens within the, at least Autodesk products or similar. And it's not that advanced. The technology is not what I found using the software, design software as a structural engineer, is that it's not advancing as quick as the pricing increase, especially in recent years. Especially in the recent years, it's been pretty stagnant, and obviously prices are due to inflation and all of this stuff increase. So technology should be going down in costs, really.
Yeah, I mean that's like that's the whole problem with SaaS. Like even look at like Slack. So like think outside of construction tech, Slack continuously increases its pricing, and it's a collaboration tool, right? Like is Slack really providing that much value? And then there's a lot of push by tech companies to reduce the cost by 90% and have 80% of the functionality.
You listen to Chamath?
Yeah, like Chamath's position, right? Like he's like, hey, why would I not do this? And like the challenge with design authoring tools is there's so much insurance behind it. And it's like, it's very, very hard to rip and replace that. Like engineers are betting their license on the software being accurate, right? Like there's so much, like it's not just about the increase in price. It's about like the downstream effects of if something happens. And I think it's a very, very hard thing to overcome. I think it's the same thing with like carbon capture neutral steel. Until like Thornton Tomasetti swings a carbon neutral steel in New York City, like that barrier is going to be very, very hard to overcome. Thornton Tomasetti wants to, but can they get an insurance policy from a massive insurance company to cover that project? So there's all these different like levels that like are very, very challenging. And when you get into these like really, really tough, difficult situations of like, am I going to take the risk as a specific engineer to replace Autodesk or an Autodesk tool? There's a lot of other things that have to happen first.
That's fair.
Yeah. So Mike, is the plan to be acquired by Autodesk?
No, the plan's to IPO. We're gonna go ring the bell.
Good, nice. Glad to hear.
Yeah,
glad to hear. I think just one last question from me. Anyway, it's just about your view on companies like Autodesk. As an incumbent, I suppose. Like, what's the future for these guys?
I think Autodesk has done a very, very good job of becoming a platform that allows other tools to plug and play into it. And that's the pitch, right? It's both Procore and Autodesk are pushing down a platform play, which is like a foundational data source from design to turnover. And I think one of the challenges that any startup's going to have to replace that is a lot of projects are 5, 6, 7 years. So you're always going to have a subscription to one of those incumbent tools. And even if you turn it over to the owner, like you're still looking at your as-builts in that solution. So the challenge to replace that data infrastructure system, and you think about like look outside of construction at Oracle databases. People still use Oracle databases. People still use Salesforce. People use these monstrous systems. So it's hard to replace those as like foundational pieces, but you can chip away at like where areas that they're not focusing on.
Very good.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we wrap up, guys?
Go for it.
Yeah. Okay,
Let's do
Mike.
it.
Thanks for the question.
Yeah, Mike. So where people can find out more about you and Build Vision?
Yeah, our website's buildvision.io, or you can reach out directly to me at mike@buildvision.io.com, or message me on LinkedIn.
By the way, Mike is the most responsive guy on LinkedIn, so definitely go there. Cool. All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.